Hello and welcome to another update. In this one I'll be covering the whole front line, so let's get started here to the north, where the Russian forces are reported to have started attacks in the direction of Hamelne, which is this village here. It is isolated by the highway, so this actually may indicate that the Russian forces have had some advances by Novoselivsk, as there is no clear indication as to where they have attacked Hamelne from. It could be from Volodymyrivka, but essentially the Russian forces are reported to have attacked in this direction. Could also just be attacks here by the rail lines here to the west of Volodymyrivka. Then we move on to the Crimea front, where the Russian forces are attacking the usual areas in the direction of Makiivka, Nevsky, west of Chernopopivka, southwest of Chernopopivka, direction of Sarishne, south of Dubrova, and in the Serebryansky forest area. As for the Siversk front, the same here with attacks in the direction of Bilorivka, Verkhovno-Kamyansky, and northwest of Berestove. Then we look here to the south in the direction of the Bakhmut front, where the Russian forces are attacking the direction of Selesnyansky, the E40 highway, Oryhov-Vasilivka, between Oryhov-Vasilivka and Hryhorivka, direction of Vahdanivka, by the road between Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar, in the direction of Khomove, to the north of Bakhmut. Then here to the south of Bakhmut, here's where the interesting news has arrived, where the Russian forces have completely captured the southern district and have advanced further and fully captured the market district here to the center of the city. So the Russian forces now have control over the marketplace, southern, eastern, and northern Bakhmut, as well as parts of the western district and parts of the central district, including the marketplace. So the Russian forces have recently captured this, and at the same time, Prigozhin, who is the Wagner commander and leader and founder, he visited the front line. He visited this educational center here, and this was recorded. They were going there around dawn, so that is the safest time, but there were still gunshots and artillery shots in the background. So essentially, the arrival of Prigozhin to the front line is a good morale boost for the Wagnerians fighting here within the city. But something interesting that I noticed in the recording is that there is a still frame that I stopped at, where you can see the Russian flag on a helmet of one of the Wagner soldiers, and that reminded me of this thread on Twitter by Ayask, where he essentially talks about this Russian soldier who has been giving updates on the war continuously throughout the war, like 5 or 6 times. And this is actually legit because he posted a picture of himself with his face blurred, and I did everything to see if that was a picture found on the internet. It is definitely an original picture, so it is most likely true that he is a Russian soldier, or at the very least knows someone who's a Russian soldier. And essentially what he says is that he joined Wagner after the end of his rotation because he had more money to buy better gear. So essentially there is a lot of Russian soldiers joining Wagner once their rotation ends. This is the same with a CNN article where they put up a video of Russian soldiers talking, where they essentially said, our squad had to be rotated out. We cannot fight anymore, so please let us join Wagner. They made that video to Wagner or Prigozhin. So there's an interest in Russian soldiers joining Wagner after the rotation ends because there's more money, there's better equipment involved because of the extra money. So essentially there are Russian soldiers who are well trained and well experienced in this war who join Wagner because of better equipment. So Wagner isn't just the prisoners that everyone keeps talking about. It is also professional soldiers from different countries, but mainly Russia. And we then move on to the southwest of Bakhmut, where the Russian forces continue their attacks in the southwestern districts, here by the high-rise buildings to the southwest, where there's actually special forces by the Ukrainian forces located. They are defending this area to make sure that the intersection holds. And fighting continues here to the southwestern district. Then we move on to the south of the highway between Bakhmut and Konstantinivka, where the Russian forces are attacking in this direction as well as in the direction of Ivanivsky. There's been no reports of fighting by Prigozhin or Stupushki the past day, so most likely they start fighting in that direction. Then we see here by the Avdiivka front, fighting continues in the direction of Novokalinove as well as Stepove, in the direction of Kamyanka, southward in the direction of Avdiivka from Opitne, in the direction of Estoshkine and Sheverne, and as well as in the direction of Pervomayske, both to the north and the center, and in the direction of Nevelske. So here the situation seems to have stalled as no forces seem to be advancing. The Russian forces are holding the rail lines to reduce the amount of supplies going in and out of Avdiivka, as well as trying to prevent any reinforcements from arriving. And then there's just this general situation. Then we see here in the direction of Marinka, fighting continues in the center, to the north and to the south in the direction of Pobieda, but there's also been fighting here to the southwest on outskirts of Marinka, so fighting continues in this area. Fighting also continues in the direction of Novomikhailivka and in the direction of Uledar. And something I wanted to add to this video is the deployment map. So I made a couple months ago a video titled 86,000 troops in Bakhmut, in and around Bakhmut. So essentially, a brigade can be up to 4,000 soldiers. Most likely they aren't at full strength, of course. That is why I will correct it to up to 86,000 troops. And now I found something interesting, and that is this northern flank of Bakhmut, this area here, in the direction of Soledar. So when the Ukrainian forces were defending Soledar, they had about 20,000 troops here to the north. And now after the fall of Soledar, the Ukrainian forces now have up to 40,000 troops in that direction. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 brigades. And with each up to 10,000 troops, that is up to 40,000 troops in the northern flank of Soledar. Just to show the importance of Soledar and how much it actually meant for the Ukrainians to hold onto it, because after the fall of Soledar, they had to double the amount of soldiers they had in the northern area. As for Bakhmut itself, the amount of troops within the city numbers around somewhere up to 20,000 troops, as there are multiple regiments besides the 4 brigades that are there. Then we see to the west, in the direction of Ivanivske, there are 2 brigades and 4 battalions. And in the direction of Joseph Yar, there are 4 brigades. To the southwest, there are 2 brigades, and to the north on the flank, there's 1 in Bohdanivka. So essentially, the Ukrainian forces in and around Bakhmut is numbering around the same amount as it was a couple of months ago, which means that although all of the casualties that have arrived in this battle, they just keep replacing those losses. So it truly is a meat grinder. And that is because there's significant losses in this part of the front line, yet they keep pouring new troops in. So where exactly are they getting these troops from? This is why we are not seeing any offensives by either force, because both are pouring a lot of equipment, a lot of troops, a lot of everything into this part of the front line, which makes it unable to focus on another place because there's so much being put into this. But then we see an attack by the Russian forces in Avdiivka. And here we see there are 4 brigades by the Ukrainian forces, a regiment and a battalion. And this isn't the real numbers, but there's a couple of brigades by the Russian forces as well. So essentially, the Russian forces have enough troops to start multiple offensives, small scale, in the direction of larger cities in the front line, while the Ukrainians are unable to conduct any offensives or counteroffensives other than the parts where the Russians are attacking. This may indicate that the Ukrainian forces are trying to build up a larger force behind the front line, which they've been talking about for months. They want their spring offensive, they want the Western tanks for the spring offensive, and all of these things. So essentially, the Ukrainians are trying to just hold on to these places until the spring offensive launches, and then they hope that will redirect the Russian troops from these parts of the front line to that offensive area, and then they hope for that to succeed, after which will allow them to push back the Russian forces in these areas. However, this comes at a very high cost, trying to hold on to the area, as with the way the Russian forces are advancing, they are trying to heavily bombard the Ukrainian positions, which leaves the buildings destroyed and the fortifications destroyed, and then just keep sending new troops into these areas where the fortifications and buildings are destroyed. That will increase the casualties in those areas. So essentially, the Russian forces are using this area as a meat grinder as they try to attrit the Ukrainian forces preparing for an offensive. And that is all for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.